Good morning, AHS sleuths. Today we will be examining every piece of information that's either been leaked, released, or theorized about regarding the 13th season of American Horror Story. It's been nearly 3 years since we've had any new American Horror Story at our fingertips, so I thought it would be fun to do a little bit of a news update video / a theory video today. With no trailer or posters in sight, us fans have been chomping at the bit for new pieces of information, and we've definitely gotten fed over the last 2 or 3 months. The season was first announced back in 2020 and officially confirmed its cast all the way back in October of 2025. Since that fateful Halloween day, we've been drip-fed small bits of information on the season that have been, in all honesty, kinda confusing, contradictory, exciting, or downright bizarre. It started with that cast announcement back in October that Ryan posted to his Instagram, which revealed the names of Sarah Paulson, Evan Peters, Angela Bassett, Kathy Bates, Ariana Grande, Emma Roberts, Billy Lord, Gabri Sidibe, Leslie Grossman, and the one and only queen of American Horror Story, Jessica Lange, would all be returning to the series. The simple text over the black screen was accompanied by the song I'll Be Seeing You by Vera Lynn, which sparked theories online about the song's significance, if any at all, relating to the season itself. To end the cast announcement, there were these cryptic yet generic-looking AI-generated images that seemed to harken back to older AHS seasons. Through all of these images, a lot of buzz was generated. Despite my very anti-AI art stance, the promise of something new from AHS in 2025 leading into the beginning of this year was palpable. I only wish that Ryan and the promo team had decided not to use AI, but that's besides the point. It had been 2 long years since Delicate was shat out on a plate and force-fed to us. So I was not only excited about a new season of the show because it had been so long, but also because the show had some major rebuilding to do. Delicate was such a mess, and is widely considered to be the worst season of the show, so it only makes sense that Ryan would take a break from AHS to try and make something worth watching, and potentially win the fans over again. AHS fans had been waiting in silence for so long, and that Halloween provided the very first glimpse into the new season. Filming was announced to start in February, but then it was moved to March, and then again in April. Production eventually did start the first week of April, and to celebrate the return of a legend, Ryan posted the second official sneak peek at the season. 3 images of Jessica Lange in what appeared to be Constance Langdon's hair and wardrobe, standing poised in front of a gorgeous penthouse window. When these images dropped, I and many others lit up with joy. This was like the only thing my side of the internet was talking about for days. Jessica Lange was announced to be returning in October, but it wasn't until April that her return truly felt tangible. Those 3 images lit a fire under the American Horror Story fandom and solidified that this new season was a season to watch, a season to be excited about. I'd argue that this is the most excited we've been as a fandom since like 2020, right before Red Tide was about to start filming. Just 2 days after the Jessica pics dropped, Ryan posted again, this time a picture of Sarah Paulson returning as Cordelia Good. Also in this post, Ryan clarified that American Horror Story would finally bring back its extremely complex and gorgeous set for the Miss Robichaux's Academy that was done so incredibly dirty in Apocalypse. The next day, Ryan posted for the final time a video of the Madison Montgomery quoting her iconic line,
"Surprise, bitch. Bet you thought you'd seen the last of me."
This final video sits at 1.1 million likes on Instagram alone. That's not even counting how viral all 3 of these posts went on platforms like Twitter and Facebook. So within the first week of filming, the stage was set for another Apocalypse-esque season. But days later, something even more exciting happened. Huge thank you to this Twitter user for providing so much information from this day. They were live tweeting from the set, and there were plenty of images and videos to come from that day of shooting. On April 14th, a week after the trifecta of images on Ryan's Instagram story, it was revealed that newcomer Joey Polari's character would play a very important role in the season. AHS began filming scenes of Joey Polari's character walking outside outside of the Ansonia building in New York City. It was also leaked by a very reliable AHS news account, the AHSZone, that season 13 would feature this building called the Apollyon, is I believe how you pronounce it, and that the number 13 itself would play a key reason as to why Joey's character appeared so frantic in the scene that they shot outside the building. I forgot to mention this earlier, that I saw, the day that all of this was happening, the day that they were filming these scenes outside, I saw photographic evidence of fake, like, for the show, flower delivery vans that were called, like, Unlucky 13 Flowers or something. Unlucky 13 Florist or something like that. I can't find those pictures for the life of me, but I saw them, like, circulating on Twitter, and I can't find them now. So I think that that's, like, one of the things that Joey encounters if this, like, Unlucky 13, Curse of 13 aspect of his character is to be believed. That's one of the things that he encounters around this time, because those vans were driving by on the same day that they were shooting with Joey outside of the Apollyon, the Ansonia building in New York. Could be completely wrong, but I saw pictures. I saw pictures. I don't know where they went. I don't have a source for that. Could be a thing, could not be a thing, but the images of the vans with that logo on it that said, like, Unlucky 13 Florist or whatever it was, those started to circulate on, like, posts on Twitter before the leak about Joey's character having, like, this encounter with the number 13 all the time. So that kind of makes me believe that it's possible that we'll see those, like, vans in the season, because they came from the shoot before the leak even happened. So unless somebody, like, created some fucking AI bullshit, I don't know, it didn't look like AI to me, so I don't know. Anyways, I thought I'd mention it here because I was kind of talking about why he was acting shifty, and if the vans were passing by at the same time, it's my thinking that maybe he started to see the number 13, and that was one of the things that he started to see, and that's why he looked so frantic and, like, freaked out in that scene. But I just realized while I was editing that that made no fucking sense, so I had to explain where I was going with that. So anyways, back to the video. With the season's codename being Penthouse, and along with the fact that Jessica was seen at the top of a very large building in New York City on Ryan Murphy's Instagram page, and now that Joey's character was seen filming right outside of what is assumed to be the exact same building, the rumors of this season centering on an apartment building or a hotel started to formulate a little bit more with some more evidence behind them. The building also featured a plaque on the outside that reads, "Erected during a season of unusual quiet, the building was designed to offer comfort, discretion, and a sense of permanence to those seeking a place apart from the ordinary. Its halls were built deep, its walls thick, its windows placed to observe without being observed. From the beginning, residents spoke of an immediate familiarity, as though they had lived there before." I'll talk more about that plaque a little bit later on. Just keep it in your mind for now because it's kind of important to a theory I have later on. The same Twitter user that I mentioned before that provided all of these pictures and videos from the set that day also claimed to have read a little piece of the script, and that goes as follows. The tweet describes an interaction between the doorman and Joey Polari's character named Ben. In the scene, Ben asks the doorman if he knows where Constance Langdon is. The doorman replies with, "She's waiting for you." If this tweet is to be believed, I have my suspicions that Constance Langdon is the one staying in the penthouse of this apartment or hotel or whatever it is, because why would the doorman know who Constance is by name if she was just another resident? She must be the owner or the building's caretaker, but we'll get more into that a little bit later on. These are ultimately unconfirmed as of now because this person didn't end up taking a picture of the script. It's all just from their mouth. So for now, we can't confirm or deny if this is even going to make an appearance in this season, but I thought it was relevant to show you guys because this person provided a lot of things that we already know about the season so far. Something to note though, this Twitter user ended up deleting this post. So if you go to their Twitter now, you can't find it. Do with that what you will. I don't know if they felt guilty about leaking this part of the script or if they made it up and then they realized that they were going to look like a big giant liar once the season actually came out. So yeah, Do with that what you will. We would later learn in June that the character named Joe the Doorman is played by Berto Colon, and according to the actor himself, the season will consist of 13 episodes, becoming the first season to do so since Freak Show. That aside, this might mean that the leaked scene could very well be legit, considering Berto also confirmed in the same breath that he'd be working closely with Jessica himself. We also have direct photographic evidence that Constance, at the very least, has appeared in a very tall Gothic building in New York City, that I'm just gonna come out and say right now, looks like it'd make the perfect interior of a haunted or demonic building. Moving on from the building for a second, it was also around this time that we learned that Ryan Murphy would be directing the first and third episodes of the season, after an 11-year hiatus from the director's chair. Say what you will about Ryan Murphy, and believe me, I won't hold it against you, but he knows how to direct an episode of TV, okay? Two of my all-time favorite episodes of the show, and probably my two favorite premieres from the show, Monsters Among Us and Checking In, are Ryan Murphy directed episodes. So I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I'm not excited for him to direct another episode of TV. The month of May was crazy, okay? We had so many new cast members join this season in the month of May, with names like Alex Consani, Ivantika, Paul Anthony Kelly, and Madeline Petch all announced around the same time. Another batch of returning stars was also announced shortly thereafter, with the return of Jamie Brewer as Adelaide Langdon, Zach Villa as Richard Ramirez, Seth Gable as Jeffrey Dahmer, and Mina Savari as the Black Dahlia, all returning to the show in the 13th season. On May 13th, the crew filmed either one mega crossover scene or a number of scenes spread out across multiple episodes inside a beautiful church that featured more returning characters in costume, such as Sarah Paulson's Mamie Eisenhower and T.B. Karen from Double Feature, siblings Kai Anderson and Winter Anderson, played by Evan Peters and Billy Lord from Cult, as well as minor characters like Piggy Man from Roanoke and Rubber Man from Murder House. Days later, John Carroll Lynch and Matt Frazier were also confirmed to be reprising their roles from the season of Freak Show. They were also said to have filmed scenes from that same day inside the church, but no photos were taken of them, so do with that what you will. Rumors suggest that the scenes that they filmed on this day were for the teasers and not actually for the show itself. The reason that many people think it is for the teasers is because there's so many random characters that have shown up, like Adelaide Langdon and Twisty, Kai, Winter, like all those characters were seen on that set that day, so that's why people thought maybe it was for a teaser trailer for the show. This is officially when I and many others started to feel a bit confused about this season. I mean, seriously, the amount of crossovers here is unprecedented for this show. We've obviously seen big crossover events happen before, like Apocalypse, or even smaller scale crossovers like Queenie in the Hotel Cortez or Lana Winters at the end of Roanoke. But nothing in all 12 seasons of the show has even come close to this level of interconnectivity. So far, almost every single season has a tie to season 13. Like, characters from almost every single season have been spotted filming or have been confirmed to have joined the cast. I personally believe that this season is the final one, and Ryan is really pulling out all the stops to try and connect all of these seasons together. Backing up to May 13th again, the Disney Upfront event was held, and American Horror Story actually had the opportunity to have their own showcase. Spectators recorded various moments and posted them online. The following video was taken of the teaser that played new footage from the season, confirming that Gabri Sidibe would be returning in the role of Queenie, which was pretty much a given at this point, but not totally confirmed yet, as well as Angela Bassett returning as Marie Laveau. James Patrick March, played perfectly by Evan Peters, was also confirmed to be returning through this trailer, and if I'm not mistaken, in this shot, he, Richard Ramirez, Jeffrey Dahmer, and the Zodiac Killer are standing inside of Miss Robichaux's academy, right next to the front entrance. The only reason I have this suspicion is because the lighting is almost exactly the same in this scene as it is during the scene of Cordelia walking in the hallway. Also, it appears as though Ryan is correct in his statement that they rebuilt the entirety of Miss Robichaux's academy, something that I am again so excited about because that is one of the best sets from the show, and it is really unfortunate how it looked in Apocalypse, so I'm just glad that they actually, spent the extra dollars to recreate that amazing set, because it devours. I'll talk more in depth about this teaser a little bit later on when we get into my theory portion of this video, but for now, I want to talk about how Paul Anthony Kelly was announced to be joining the season here.
The fan favorite horror story icons are back.
And at AHS, we don't just cast, we conjure. Rise and join this little coven. Please welcome our newest cast member, Paul Anthony Kelly.
I got something nice that needs fresh blood, and 13's my lucky number.
We've been expecting you, Paul.
His awkwardly timed reveal where he struggled to remove his mask and what he and the other cast members had to say kind of begged the question of why the whole thing was treated as such a big deal when Paul Anthony Kelly has only starred in one project so far, that being Love Story. Like, you would have had to have seen Love Story to know who he is, let alone even be excited about him joining the cast. Like, I'm so sorry. I don't know what they were expecting the audience to do here, because the audience is like confused as fuck when this man like takes his mask off. Like, they don't know what to make of it. I just think that they could have taken more time to plan this out, or put someone else in that position who is a little bit of a bigger star, low-key, no hate. But I don't know why they treated it as such a big deal when not that many people know who he is. This honestly could have been used for someone like Ariana Grande, because her announcement originally back in October when she was in the cast reveal that Ryan Murphy posted kind of broke the internet. Like, a lot of people were talking about her being in the season and whatever she'd be doing. So if you wanted to like pop an audience, that would be a way to do it. She would have been the one that you would put in that position if you were trying to garner attention surrounding your season. But no, we got this.
Cast member, Paul Anthony Kelly.
We've been expecting you, Paul.
Also in May, scenes were shot in a college that was dressed as an airport, where each of the past season's key locations appeared to be the only destinations offered by this airport, which again points to the multi-season crossover that is bound to occur in this season. It's unclear whether or not this was for the teasers, but I'd put my money on it because I just can't see anything this on the nose happening in the season itself. Other than that, recently we learned that Frances Conroy would be returning in the role of Myrtle Snow, and you guys, when I first heard this information, I jumped out of my seat and my heart started pounding so fast because of how fucking excited I am about this. For the longest time, we didn't think that Frances was going to come out of retirement for this new season, but we finally got the news from AHSZone, so it's not 100% confirmed, but like I said before, Zone almost never gets anything wrong, so I'm pretty optimistic that this is the case. This season wouldn't have felt right without Franny, so I'm so happy about the fact that she decided to return, even if it's just for a little cameo. As of right now, the only actors that aren't a part of the season that I would bring in still are Dennis O'Hare, Lily Rabe, and Taissa Farmiga. You can't do the Coven without Misty Day and Zoe. Whether or not Spalding returns, I don't necessarily care about, but if this is the final season, I would love to see Dennis O'Hare's other characters like Liz, or potentially even Larry Harvey, because he was definitely an interesting one. We also learned that Kathy Bates, who was announced back in October to be returning, would only be returning to film for one single day, which more than likely means she will appear in the season for just a cameo. This news is quite unfortunate because I was really looking forward to seeing Kathy in a starring role again, seeing as she has largely stayed away from the franchise since the shitstorm that was Apocalypse. This opens the door for other names that were revealed in the cast teaser to be demoted to recurring or guest appearances as well, which I can't say excites me all that much. As great as season 13's cast appears to be, I am sort of worried about how much each individual actor, and therefore how much all of the different characters they'll be playing, will even get to do this season, considering the fact that there's just so many goddamn names on that cast list. You look at this cast, and it would be hard for this number of characters to exist in a season of 13 episodes already. But it has been reported that season 13 will be cut short to half-hour episodes instead of the traditional hour-long ones. How long will each of these characters actually get to shine, and how many of them will end up even having meaningful arcs at all? The more bloated this season is with its characters, the more likely it is that the season is going to be one big fucking mess, orchestrated by the king of big messes, Ryan Murphy. Apocalypse and Red Tide were both seasons that were filled to the brim with A-list actors and American Horror Story legends, but both seasons also suffered because of that. There was just no room for all of the storylines and characters and arcs to fully be fleshed out in those seasons, and I think that something similar might be happening with this season, especially given the fact that both Apocalypse and Red Tide were on the shorter side at 7 and 5 hours respectively. Think back to how dirty Adina Porter was done in Apocalypse and Red Tide. Neither of her characters from either of those seasons were particularly well written or fleshed out, unfortunately, when you compare them to her previous two roles in Roanoke and Cult. In fact, pretty much all of the characters from Red Tide felt like they were missing something, despite how good they were in theory. If season 13 follows suit, casting a treasure trove of A-listers and also adopting a 13 30-minute episode format instead of the traditional 13 60-minute one, the season will be around 6 or 7 hours at best. When compared to the first 5 seasons that all fall somewhere between 8 and 10 hours in length, that's 2 to 4 crucial hours that could have been spent developing the characters, many of whom did not receive satisfying arcs or endings in their respective seasons anyway. I am extremely worried about this potential new format because it will be a complete disservice to the show and the actors playing all of these characters, because none of them are going to have enough time to fully be fleshed out, like I said. And if this is the final season of the show, it will have to go out on a very bloated, half-baked, and unsatisfying note. So, it's clear that this season will feature crossovers. The sheer number of characters that are already announced to be returning, plus the fact that so many returning actors that have unconfirmed roles are also going to be in this season, kind of points to the fact that this is just going to be one big amalgamation of previous seasons' characters. A large number of these returning characters are seasons from Coven, and as I've talked about it before on this channel, I do think that this season will definitely be heavily focused on the witches, with some other cameos and storylines thrown in there so that it's not just a straight up sequel to Coven, kind of similar to what Apocalypse was doing, where it was a bit of a mix of previous seasons. But I think we can safely rule out a full-on sequel just based on the assumption that Ben, who is the male lead of the season, played by Joey Polari, begins the season on what appears to be a search for Constance Langdon, suggesting the season may have a broader focus than just the Coven. Ben's character and his place in the story actually kind of fascinates me. When Joey was first announced to be joining the cast, fan theories flooded the internet about what his character could be doing in the season, and whether or not his character is the second Antichrist from the end of Apocalypse, named Devin. When all these reports started coming out that Joey would be playing the male lead of the season, these rumors only got stronger. Because when you think of how this season is kind of taking after Apocalypse, Michael Langdon was the male lead of that season as well, and if this season is basically just the same setup as Apocalypse, you would think that Ben is the male lead, the next Antichrist. What if Ben finds out he's the Antichrist, and somehow learns that Constance Langdon raised the one before him, Michael Langdon, a failed experiment that the devil now regrets? Ben is seeking Constance out because he's conflicted about his identity and needs to find someone who will understand his struggle. We know for a fact that Timothy and Emily's child named Devin was sought out by the Black Pope at the end of Apocalypse, and so we can connect the dots between then and now and assume that maybe Ben was raised by the Satanic Church for years, groomed by the satanic Merriam Mead, just as Michael was, only this time as Ben ages rapidly, he learns of Michael's existence in the other timeline, which is what causes Ben to search for Constance, who's now living in NYC. My guess is that Constance wanted to put her past behind her, and so she decided to move to New York. I personally see a storyline this season that is like the opposite arc that Michael had in Apocalypse. I predict that Ben doesn't actually want to bring about the end times and actually feels somewhat jaded by Satan, perhaps due to the fact that, unlike Michael, Ben was actually born of two living humans, and maybe something's not right here genetically. Maybe the cooperative chose an incompatible match. Maybe Ben's arc this season will be him running from all of his responsibilities that Satan has thrusted upon him. In the process, seeking the help of Constance Langdon, who obviously raised the previous Antichrist in the old timeline. And, you know, maybe somehow Constance stayed in contact with Mallory, whom she found out was a witch somehow, and this gets Ben in contact with the witches, and he can join their cause, I guess, to defeat Satan. I don't know. From there, Satan would have exhausted every effort to enact his revenge on the witches for stopping the previous apocalypse, except one. This is where the crossover of every single season ensues. If all of this sounds like fan fiction, it's on purpose. It's because Ryan Murphy already wrote fan fiction for his show with Apocalypse. So pardon my very fan fiction-y tone and the way the story is going in this theory. I know this theory sounds ridiculous. I know this sounds like you would find it on Wattpad, but I don't really have much else to work with when this is the precedent for the show. So yeah, call it cringe if you want, but this is just what I think is going to happen based on the seasons we've already gotten, like Apocalypse, and based on all the clues about the season that we're getting. Don't hate the player, hate the game. That's all I'm gonna say. Anyway, back into the video. Disappointed at his failed attempts to kill the witches and start another apocalypse, Satan just decides he's going to do it himself by resurrecting all of the evil souls from previous seasons. Instead of forcing a bright young protege to infiltrate the world's governments, Satan decides he'll just resurrect every evil spirit from seasons past, sicking them all on the witches and potentially the rest of humanity. This would be the second apocalypse. Chaos would absolutely ensue, and it might be the best way for the show to go out. It sounds insane, and it may not work, but here's what makes me think that this is possible. 1. The sheer number of returning cast members and confirmed characters either points to a bunch of unconnected flashbacks, or all of these dead characters are getting revived for some reason. And 2, take a look at this video from the Disney Upfront teaser again. Based on these shots from the teaser, my guess as to why all of these dead characters, such as James Patrick March, Richard Ramirez, and Jeffrey Dahmer, are all suddenly showing up at the Witches Academy, must have something to do with Satan giving them their lives back in order to do his bidding. Also, there's this.
Horrifying landscape with a curse of 13 runs rampant.
This leads me to believe that Ben is definitely being stalked by the number 13, like AHSZone reported. The obvious conclusion as to why he's being stalked by the number 13, it's a demonic number or an unlucky number, and Satan is probably trying to use it as a way to contact Ben. Also, the scenes of the Devil's Night killers arriving in the Witches' Academy directly supports this theory. Why else would random characters from Hotel in 1984 even be in New Orleans at a random school for witches, if not at the request of the one that they worship, Satan? Hopefully they also explain in this season how Richard Ramirez was able to die over and over and over and over again until at least 2019, but back in 2015, he was able to visit the Hotel Cortez for Devil's Night. I know they won't explain that plot hole, but, you know, I can dream. This theory works for me because it's different enough from Apocalypse that I'm able to sort of rationalize it as not a straight up rehash of that season, while also not fully ignoring the fact that we have another Antichrist in the canon that we need to kind of deal with, and this season is a big crossover event, so it would kind of be the place to do that. Like, I'm sorry, I don't need to see another Michael Langdon story of him getting pulled towards the darkness and eventually just doing the exact same thing that we did in that season. I think it would be kind of boring, so why not have a failed Antichrist that doesn't want to do what Satan tells him and instead kind of runs away from his identity and joins the witches? That could lead us to, obviously, like I said, where Satan is just like, okay, fine, I'm just gonna sick all of these fucking evil dead spirits on you and give them magical powers or something. Like, I don't know, like, who knows? I just want Ben's character arc to stand out from Michael's if he is the next Antichrist, because then it's like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, this is just Apocalypse 2. And obviously, nothing is confirmed about Ben's character. We don't know if he is a grown-up Devin or not. It's just kind of likely because he is the male lead, and where we left off with Apocalypse suggests that we're headed there again. So, yeah. I don't know if I would put money on it, but I have a sneaking suspicion that that is who Joey Polari is playing. This entire theory is honestly based off of a tweet that is no longer up and a gut feeling. So if it doesn't end up being correct, I wouldn't be surprised. This also kind of begs the question of where the Gothic apartment fits into this story. The plaque on the front of the building makes it feel like it's supposed to be important to the season's theme, and when you look up the Apollyon, you learn that it is a noun meaning an angel of the bottomless pit of the Book of Revelation. You know, the book about the prophesized apocalyptic end times. So the hotel or apartment building that this season will feature, called the Apollyon, must be linked to this story somehow, which leads me to this next theory. Okay, I didn't actually create this theory. It's just a theory or a group of theories that have been kind of circulating in the AHS fandom space for months now, kind of around the time that they started filming, or around the time that it was announced that this season's codename would be titled Penthouse. When the title was announced, many people sort of theorized that this season could have something to do with a haunted apartment or a haunted hotel. Fans theorized that this building could have 13 floors, and the season would be playing into the old 13-floor superstition. The idea is that the season is called Penthouse because the penthouse floor of the apartment would be floor 13, where all the spooky shit would be happening. When filming started and all of those images of Constance were posted to Ryan's Instagram, this theory took off. Constance presiding over a haunted apartment building in New York City just felt like such a fun little side quest for her to be on. And the last line on the plaque in front of the building that reads, almost as if they've been there before, sort of makes it sound like those rooms or those levels or what have you is going to be familiar to some of these characters, which led a lot of people to believe that this apartment building or hotel or whatever it is somehow related to seasons that we've already seen. At some point, this theory began to change, and fans started to hypothesize that the apartment building itself is like a wormhole or portal to other times, or seasons, or locations. There's also other versions of this theory where every single floor corresponds to a different season of the show, which I think is a little bit too meta for the show to fully acknowledge itself, because in the real world, what would be so special about all of these seasons and locations that they would just all be connected to a 13-floor apartment in New York City of all places? It just seems like the show would be mythologizing itself a little bit too hard for my taste, but I will admit it does add a nice little bow onto the canon of the show and sort of ties everything together nicely if this were to be the last season. I just don't know how the writers would be able to pull off that concept very well. The idea of this apartment building that was created by the devil that turns out to be like a wormhole to all of these different locations and time periods that are very specific and curated seems like a really cool idea, but to be completely honest, it kind of lacks a reason to exist. Like, conceptually, it's very interesting, but I just don't really know what it could all lead to or mean in the end, which is why I much prefer the Apocalypse 2.0 theory, because it's something that feels more aligned with the show than just this apartment building that's a portal. Because then it's like, what are we even doing? Like, what do all these residents in this apartment have in common? Why were they chosen from their specific seasons? And how would that even work? How would they justify it? It just seems a little bit out there for me, and like it wouldn't end up making total sense versus the Apocalypse 2.0, which is like, okay, the devil is resurrecting all of these previous characters that are evil to get revenge on the witches. Like, that feels perfectly aligned with the canon of the show, as wacky of a concept as that is. I would take that over every season was secretly a part of a wormhole in an apartment in New York. I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of that theory, because it would kind of recontextualize everything that we've already seen from the show. If this is the final season, I think doing something like the Apocalypse 2.0 theory or whatever would make a lot of sense for the show's final season. However, if Ryan reveals that season 13 is not the final season after all, which he's kind of already hinted at, and this season has yet another open-ended conclusion, or God forbid more fucking time travel, I just don't know how much of a lasting impact this season will actually have. Ryan has said in the past that he doesn't plan to end American Horror Story with this season, but I kind of find it hard to believe that any of the cast members would stick around for many more seasons, considering they've largely already been gone since the end of the 2010s. I mean, if we exclude Double Feature, which had a pretty decent cast, it's been close to 8 years since most of these actors have been on this show, and I just don't see them sticking around for very long after this season. In my eyes, this season is one last nostalgia trip for everybody before the show is finally laid to rest. Maybe Ryan will pick the show back up in like 5 or 10 more years, but I just don't see a possibility where this season is a second attempt at Apocalypse crossover shenanigans, and then season 14 ends up being something like Delicate again. But who knows? After the first Apocalypse season, we got 1984, and that was a pretty decent season, so I could be wrong. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. These are some theories that I've had kind of floating around in my head for a while now. Who knows if any of them will come true though, because like I said, a lot of this information is based off of a couple of tweets by either AHSZone or that user Angelofxdreams, I believe was the name. I am cautiously still very excited for American Horror Story, and I hope you guys are too. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!